Hello, and welcome back to History with Tennis. Today we're going to move into our geography unit and really just get a baseline in terms of what is geography, its importance, and resources to better understand geography. And today I'm just going to be giving you a brief preview of what we're going to be doing in class in upcoming days or even weeks, and just putting a real quick baseline of what we're going to be doing. I want to start off by just introducing the continents and oceans. For continents, there's North America, South America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. These are seven of the largest land masses in the United States or in the world, and are just the seven key land masses in the world. And then I want to go into understanding the oceans, the Pacific, the Atlantic, the Arctic, the Southern Ocean, and the Indian Ocean. And these oceans are really important to understand in terms of just really with continents too, understanding the world that we live in, the world around us, and really the impact these play. For example, an example would be just take like New York City. New York City is right on the Atlantic Ocean, and with that, there's a lot of trade that comes in, in and out of New York City, to and from places like South America, Africa, Europe, and the same goes with a city on the coast, on the other coast, like the West Coast, like Los Angeles, has all sorts of trade that comes from the Pacific Ocean, whether it's through Australia, Asia, could even be South America, and even like a place like Mexico. These oceans are very important in understanding the world around us, and uh, understanding really what the world is like, and just having a very baseline understanding of it. I also want to move into understanding like just the United States, and a little bit more of understanding like key geographic places and features. So I just want to start off. Obviously, we live in Ohio. This is roughly where we're at in Ohio, and I want to start out by talking about Lake Erie. Lake Erie is one of the five Great Lakes in the United States, and lakes are freshwater. They're I'm sure you've been to Lake Erie, or if not, even if you've gone to Cedar Point, Cedar Point's right on Lake Erie. Lake Erie is one of the five freshwater lakes in the United States, or one of the major ones, and they're not used in the same way for trade or something like the ocean is, but are important to understand. Whether it's the sort of animal and sea life that lives around there, or uh, sort of how they can impact weather, even. For example, the temperature of Lake Erie and what they'll call lake effect will impact the weather in Cleveland more than it'll in a way it doesn't impact us right here because we're not right on the lake. I also want to move into talking about some major cities. New York City. I was talking about New York City earlier. New York City is a huge hub for business. It's very densely populated, very dense and high concentration of people that live in New York City. It's not like living in much of Northeast Ohio. The closest place to it would definitely be Cleveland or even Akron, but the sheer mass of New York City, and all that goes on in New York City. And you might wonder, why is New York City so big? Why here? Well, when you take a little zoom out and understand, it's right on the Atlantic Ocean. New York City is a huge spot for business and a huge place for um, its geographic area around it is the reason why New York City is the way it is. I also want to just talk about the U.S. Capitol. This is the U.S. Capitol building, but understanding, where is Washington D.C. at? Why, uh, I think when I was in school, I understood some of this stuff existed, but I didn't know where it was at in the United States. I feel that understanding, where something is in the United States is very important, and understanding, having just at least a little baseline idea of what the world around us looks like. And I also want to talk about San Francisco. San Francisco's similar to New York City, but again, as I was discussing earlier, it's on the Pacific Ocean. It's on the West Coast. It uses the Pacific Ocean the same way that New York uses the Atlantic Ocean. They're very popular spots because of their geography, and that's why a lot of the biggest cities, you can see Los Angeles is in Southern California. You know, they're big cities and big hubs for business, and especially in the world long ago where there was more travel through water, these places ended up becoming big cities. I then want to move into some geographical features. So the first would be like the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains are located, you know, Western United States. Rocky Mountains, I can even show you with this physical map. It's not similar to where we live here. It's the Rockies tend to be, it's rougher. You can see this is a physical map. Physical maps show they focus on the land and how land looks maybe a little bit more from like a satellite view and understanding. You can see this roughness is the mountains, or even some of this down here is the desert. Um, so I just want to introduce mountains and really I know when I was in school I understood what mountains were from a very young age, but I didn't know where they were at. And we will as we go through this unit, we'll dive deeper into each of these land masses and landmarks. But I just want to give a brief idea of where some of these are at. I want to move into the plains, the Great Plains. Not as different of, I would say, landmark structure or like landscape. This looks a lot more similar to where we live than Colorado does, than the Colorado mountains look to where we live. But the Great Plains stretch from around that Montana area all the way to around Texas is what's considered roughly the Great Plains. And again, I forgot to mention with Colorado, the Rockies, I have this line here as to roughly where the Rockies stretch, and they stretch into this northwestern part of the United States into Canada. Then I want to move into the Mississippi River. The Mississippi River is the largest river in the United States, and this river moves very it goes out through the Gulf of Mexico, but it moves through all the way to around Minnesota. It has a very long path, and especially in like the older days of the United States, the earlier days, was a great way for trade. Using waterways, and then it's very very important, especially to the history of the United States. Not maybe as much in the same way today, but definitely in the past. Then I want to move into the Grand Canyon. The Grand Canyon is, I'm sure as many of you have seen pictures of the Grand Canyon. Uh, it's in that Arizona area, and looks desert like very much, just like a lot of Arizona looks. Um, and that's a very very different structure than where we live. That's nothing like where we live, and I think it's very important to just get an understanding of. Again, I think a lot of us know what the Grand Canyon is, or I've seen pictures similar to this, but where is it? What makes it so unique and distinct? And then I want to talk about the Arizona desert, which again looks very much like the Grand Canyon. And again, this part of the United States, this southwestern part, is a lot hotter, a lot drier, and by drier I mean less rainfall. It's very different from where we live. And then I just want to move into understanding, as I mentioned earlier, physical maps and really their focus on um, just the environment around us, not as much of which state or this or that. Just understanding the environment of the world around us, and I think that's very important because looking at a physical map, you really get an idea of, okay, where are special features in the United States? Uh, you look at a map like this, what's here? And as I introduced, like the Rocky Mountains, the desert, um, you really see get to see those things in real time. Uh, and I want to introduce like a graph like this, and really, it shows the correlation or the sort of how rainfall relates to temperature, and we're going to use graphs like this to better understand, just understand how to read them, and uh, how these two things go along with each other. How does how does the temperature impact the rainfall on a monthly basis? We'll we'll take a deeper dive into that. And then I also want to talk about this program we'll be using called My Maps. And My Maps is a great resource. I just have plotted the University of Akron to the Summit Mall, and we can use this to understand roadways and how to get from one place to another. And this can also be used on a much larger scale, much more world scale. This is just a quick preview, and really again, the goal of this unit is going to be to understand, what is a physical map? What's a globe? I'm sure uh, you've seen many of those in class, but how can we read the world around us? How can we better understand it? And I think, there are different resources for everybody, and we're going to be using both the old school sort of globe map, physical map, and understanding landmarks like that. And we're also going to be using the newer stuff, understanding how can we use technology to better our understanding of geography. How can we really use it to our advantage to better envision? And with that, as I was showing you earlier, pictures of those different unique landmarks, we're going to just take a deeper dive into them and really, really set a foundation so that by the end of this unit, you're going to be able to understand, what is a certain type of map, what's its purpose, why do we use these, how can we understand not just the United States but the world around us, and not just name countries or states, but to be able to name, where is the desert, where are the mountains, why are places like New York more populated than a place like you know the Rocky Mountains. And from there, we're gonna by the end of this unit, you're gonna have a much better understanding of this, and we're gonna just keep building on it. So, I want to thank you for watching, and we're gonna get started in class soon, and just get rolling with it. So, thank you.